Yeah, beyond illusion, right?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanata.
Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी दंडवत प्रणाम।
Dandavat Pranam, Amol Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam. Jai
Dandavat
Shri.
Pranam, Hare Krishna. Okay, give me few seconds. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखम करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरु दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Okay, so last week we began our discussion on Nectar of Instruction. Those who could not join last week, Nectar of Instruction is a book which teaches us, which takes us from the very beginning stage of Krishna consciousness to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness, very advanced. This book is composed by Srila Rupa Goswami, and we discuss something about how Rupa Goswami is one of the closest associate of Srimati Radharani in the spiritual world. And in spiritual world, um, um, her name is Rupa Manjari, and she descended as Rupa Goswami to assist in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally empowered Rupa Goswami to write literatures on Bhakti Tattva. And uh, the the devotees who are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are called by the name Rupa Nugas. Anuga means follower, or one who is the follower of Rupa Goswami, because he has given the literatures by which one can advance in the path of bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, he did not write anything. Actually, all he wrote are 8 verses, and those 8 verses are um, very important verses. Maybe sometime in the future we can take those 8 verses in detail. They are called Siksha Ashtakam. Ashtakam means 8, so 8 verses on Shiksha, or how to advance in bhakti. So those were the only verses. Otherwise, it is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed the bhakti philosophy with Srila Rupa Goswami for 7 days in Allahabad on the bank of Ganges in Prayag. And the name of the ghat where they both discussed, is the Shashwamedha Ghat. And it is described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered into the body of Srila Rupa Goswami, and he revealed all the divine knowledge. Now, there are two aspects to it. One aspect is Rupa Goswami is eternally the one of the closest associate to Srimati Radharani, but externally also, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Lord Krishna mood of Srimati Radharani. And then he empowered and instructed Rupa Goswami. And this is one of the most important book that he wrote, which has only 11 verses. So this is the background of what we are discussing. And I also discussed last time that these 11 verses, if we remain under the shelter of the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna, then these 11 verses we will refer even after 30 years of our Krishna consciousness. And even after 30 years, when we see these 11 verses, we will feel like I'm too far. And by the end of the life also, if we see those 11 verses, we may feel like I'm too far. So that is the quality of these verses that we have begun to discuss. So this is the first verse. We discussed the introduction. Now we will go directly into the substance of this verse. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jiva vegam udaropastha vegam etan veganyo vishahita dhira sarvam apimam prithvim sasishyat. So vacho vegam, vacho is speech, vacho vegam is vega. Vega is the urge to speak. One has to tolerate. Manasa, the urges of the mind. Krodha, the urge to become angry. Jiva, the urge to taste palatable foodstuffs. Udara, the urge of the belly. And pastha, the urge of genitals. So these are the 6 urges one should tolerate. Okay, so there's a translation here. A person who can tolerate the urge, and then if you see in the translation, it says, Prithvim, the last 3 words, Prithvim sa sishyat. Shishya means disciples, basically. Shishya, like student. So Prithvim, on the whole earth planet, one can make disciples if one can overcome these 6 urges. And all these urges are very strong. And we'll discuss something about these urges today. So a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak. So there is a lot of urge, even if there is no necessity to speak. Then the mind's demands. The mind has many desires pulled by the senses, and mind becomes controlled by the senses, and the senses demands, and mind wants to go behind them. So these are the mind's demands. Then the actions of anger. So there is a urge when things don't go the way we want. Urges of the belly, which is eat more and more. And then the urges of the genitals, which is basically sex life. So one who can tolerate these 6 urges is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So we saw the introduction last time I explained in my own words. But today we will see some of those urges from Srila Prabhupada. Okay. First, one must control his speaking power. Every one of us has the power to speech. As soon as we get the opportunity, we begin to speak. So this urge has to be tolerated. Speak, because most of the time we make mistakes when we speak. Like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you chant the holy name of Krishna and if you don't criticize Vaishnavas, you will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. He said, just do these two things. Always chant and never criticize. So when we speak and when we are not careful while speaking, we will commit mistakes. Now, okay, let's see. We'll discuss more on this. If we do not speak about Krishna consciousness, we speak about all sorts of nonsense. A toad is like a mendak, frog, like that. A toad in a field speaks by croaking. So my spiritual master says toad like so if you go near the lakes where they are 100 years old toad frogs, they kind of make some grumbling sound. So it is said that the reason they make such grumbling sound is to basically attract the female toads, urge of genitals. I mean, for them also, for all living entity, these urges are there. And similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak. But even if all he has to say is nonsense. The croaking of a toad, however, simply invites the snake. Please come here and eat me. So when the frog, he makes those grumbling sound, the snake comes to know that, okay, this is where the frog is. The snake comes and eats him. So likewise, when we speak topics unrelated to Krishna, then we invite death, like not the bodily death, but the spiritual death. The croaking of a toad, however, simply invites the snake, please come here and eat me. Nevertheless, although it is inviting death, the toad goes on croaking. The talking of materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavadi philosopher The talking of materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavad philosopher may be compared to the croaking of frogs. They are always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence, the external process of mona, as Mayavadi philosophers think. Silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. The meaning of controlled speech conveyed by Srila Rupa Goswami advocates the positive process of Krishna Katha, engaging the speaking process in glorifying the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. The preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is a significance of urge to speak. So this urge to speak, anything which is material by nature, is will bind us. Now, talking about news, talking about newspaper, talking about corona, talking about what's going on in the life of somebody, like this person did this and this person got divorced, or this person has this person, like um, there is no need, but it's just or this person children got this many marks, or this and this and this and this, fill in the blanks. specifically talking about the faults of others. This person, this is his nature. He's like this. So all these kind of things. They are very detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. If you, I'm sure those who are chanting the holy name for some time, they have experienced, you speak one word which is um, kind of criticism of a Vaishnava, and we see the reaction. You see the reaction. So this is something about speech. Another thing in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says one of the quality of a Vaishnava is that he is grave. So grave means he speaks only when necessary, and he speaks only about Krishna. Or I mean, when you go to work, you may speak about work related things, but you don't speak much. Actually, people who speak a lot now, they lose value also, even in the material world. So one has to tolerate. Now, at the same time, mona or not speaking is not recommended. And the example given is some people, like my spiritual master gives an example that some people in the forest, they take a vow not to speak anything, and then they only write. If they have to communicate, they only write. So when they write nonsense. So my spiritual master says, see, that is also the same prajalpa. So this comes under prajalpa, unnecessary talking. So this one has to. So basically, less words, effective talking, with respect to daily dealing activities, and um, um, don't speak unnecessarily. So this is the urge to speak. Then the restless or fickleness of the mind, manovega, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Okay, now I will go back to the presentation. Okay, so one should avoid prajalpa. Talking of mundane subject matters unrelated to devotional service includes all non-Krishna conscious books and magazines. And we saw the example of snake and toad. Such talk contaminates the consciousness. And this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like there was one devotee of Lord Chaitanya. His name was Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami, I will not speak much about him at this point of time because very exalted personality. He is also an associate of Srimati Radharani who descended to assist Lord Chaitanya. And at one particular instance, he was in renounced order. At one particular instance, he asked Lord Chaitanya, what are the duties of a man in renounced order? And then this is the 4 verses spoken as instruction to Raghunath Das Goswami by Lord Chaitanya himself. And he says, वैरागी भाई ग्राम में कथा न सुनिबे ग्राम में वार्ता न कहिबे याबे मिलिबे आने स्वप्ने ओ ना करा भाई स्त्री संभाषणा गृह स्त्री छाड़िया भाई आसियाची वना यदि चाहा प्रणया राखिता गौरंगेरा सने छोटा हरिदासेरा कथा थाके ये न मने भला ना कहिबे आर भला ना परिबे हृदयते Radha Krishna Sarvada Sevibe. So the first instruction is Vairagi Bhai Grame Katha na Sunibe Kane. Matlab, don't use your kan, your ears to hear Grame Katha. Grame Katha means mundane talks, like what we are talking. And Grame Varta na Kahibe Yabe Milibe Ane. And please don't speak mundane talks also. Swapane o na kara bhai istri sambhasana. Even in the mind, don't associate with opposite sex. Istri. Grehe istri chadiya bhai asiyacha vana. Okay, so my dear brother, you are in the renounced order of life and should not listen to talk about ordinary, worldly things nor should you talk about worldly things when you meet with other. um, TV serials, movies, they are all Gramya Katha Sunibe. We are hearing Gramya Katha or mundane philosophers, not hearing even spiritual books, not hearing from pure devotees of the Lord. Gramya Katha, like unconducive for our Krishna consciousness. So um, when we hear these things, when you start to chant, these things will come. And um, even after 20 years, whatever you see and hear, it will come back to you at that point of time, because it's very easy to take into the mind something, but we cannot like get it out. It remains there and it contaminates the chitta. And especially things like um, 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 pornography, illicit sex, or sinful, any sinful activity, they actually create intense sinful reaction. Like your mind will become very critical, and you will find fault in everyone. You will develop a lot of mental problems. Why America has so many mental problems? Like from what I know, 50% of people in America has mental problems, and that is because of engagement in sinful activities. But since people don't know the effect of it, and even if they have heard, they have not realized it, they engage in those activities nonetheless. So um, should not listen to talk about ordinary worldly things, nor should you talk about worldly things when you meet with others. Do not think of women even in dreams. You have accepted the renounced order of life with a vow that forbids you to associate with women. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. So this particular instance where Chota Haridas was in renounced order, he was a sannyasi, and he went to beg some rice from a home. And when he was begging rice, one very old woman, she came out and he begged rice. But then he had an inappropriate thought about her at max. He didn't do anything, just an inappropriate thought. And then he came back. Um, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is sitting in the heart of all living entities, he told his servants that tell Chota Haridas. So Mahaprabhu only asked him that he can go and beg some rice for me. But when Chota Haridas was coming back, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the servants, go and you will meet Chota Haridas on the way and tell him, never see me again. And devotees were shocked. And then uh, nobody had that courage to ask Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu why. So they all went to Chota Haridas and they told Chota Haridas that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told you never to see him again. Chota Haridas knew the reason, uh, because he knows that I cannot hide anything from Lord Krishna, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chota Haridas started crying. And then many devotees went on behalf of Chota Haridas to beg forgiveness on behalf of Chota Haridas. Nobody knew what happened, but only Lord Chaitanya knew, and Chota Haridas Thakur naturally knew. So when devotees told Lord Chaitanya to please forgive Chota Haridas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya told the devotees that if you ask me one more time to forgive Chota Haridas, I will leave Jagannath Puri and go away from here. So devotees had such love for Lord Chaitanya, so they did not have guts to ask again. And Chota Haridas, he never saw Lord Chaitanya again. Actually, there is a description. Chota Haridas went to Allahabad, he went to Prayag, and then he mm, actually entered the river and he committed suicide. And later on, the news came to Lord Chaitanya that Chota Haridas committed suicide. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he heard Chota Haridas committed suicide, Lord Chaitanya said, yeah, he deserved it. So this is a very, very intense pastime. Mahaprabhu just said that, yeah, he deserved it. And that was because he just had a thought about a woman. Now, what to speak about people in this age of Kali? So now it's not like I can tell you one more instance, since you're very sincere devotees. Um, there was one sannyasi at the time of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, this is like another very intense pastime. And Srila Prabhupada said, if you take renounce order of life, then you cannot think of women in an inappropriate way, even in your mind. Um, um, that's brahmacharya, or that's sannyasi. And um, one devotee who was in renounced order, he asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what if the thought comes to the mind about inappropriately about a woman? And Prabhupada said, if your mind is so much uncontrolled, then um, the kind of how you atone, how Chota Haridas atoned for his sinful thought process is by committing suicide. So Srila Prabhupada told him casually like that, just to emphasize that one should not mentally think of sense gratification. And this sannyasi, he actually ended up committing suicide. Actually, Prabhupada was not so serious because he was telling in a joking way, yeah, Chota Haridas, you see what he did. But this devotee took it very seriously, and he ended up in doing that. But Srila Prabhupada did explain that it is very difficult in this age of Kali, people to not think about women also. I mean, woman does not mean woman, or basically for man, woman is woman, but for woman, man is woman. When we say istri, we actually refer to istri means to be enjoyed. So for a man, woman can be a personality to be enjoyed, and for a woman, man can be a personality to be enjoyed. So that's what istri means. Um, so it now we have anarthas, and it may be very difficult um, to not have unconducive thoughts even in the mind. But the holy name is very powerful. By chanting the holiness, you will be purified. But at the same time, one must be very careful. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, "Mithya charasa uchyate." A person who takes up spiritual life and maybe renounce, and then his mind dwells on the object of sense gratification, then he is called Mithyachari. Mithyachari means um, cheater, cheater. Now, in our case, we if we are sincere, that's sufficient. Sincere means, okay, the thought may come, um, but we don't act on it, and we condemn ourselves. Oh, what kind of treacherous person I am! How degraded I am! I deserve to be punished by Yamaraj for these kind of thoughts I have. Mind is naturally very impure. Because, and why is mind impure? Because mind have been exposed to many sinful activities in the past. So the desire has become very strong, and that's why there's a very high qualification. That's why I said, even if you come back after, this is the beginning of Nectar of Instruction, and it is so intense. That's why I said, even after you, if you have Lord Krishna's grace, and if you continue practicing Krishna consciousness for 2-3 decades, you come back to Nectar of Instruction, you'll feel like, oh no, how far I am. So this is the quality of these verses. And same with Gramya Katha also. I mean, we may hear it, but then many times while eating, we speak Gramya Katha, or any kind of mundane talks. What people do, materialistic people, and they go to each other's home and they talk about politics, and they talk about this and this and this and this and that. And then it becomes very difficult. Now we are talking about serious bhakti. That's why I previously said that this seminar is for serious devotees who wants really to experience divinity in their life, want to go deeper in their Krishna consciousness. And if you try practicing these, see what happens. Experience is the best way to develop faith. See what happens. And these words are spoken by perfected devotees, eternally liberated devotees, and in their most mature state of Krishna consciousness. So, if we don't see the value in these verses now, we may neglect these instructions, and then we may think that's okay, it's not practical, and then we will go through difficult times in our Krishna consciousness, and then after 20 years of going through difficult time, then we will come to realize how important was this instruction that was given to me 20 years back by Srila Rupa Goswami. So that time, so an intelligent person, that's why we saw there are three kind of intelligent person. The most intelligent person, he learns by hearing. He hears and he accepts. The less intelligent person, he hears but he doesn't accept. So he sees that, oh, this person was doing so much prajalpa, and see, he faced so many difficulties in his Krishna consciousness. So by seeing they learn. They don't learn by just by hearing. By seeing they learn. Even lesser intelligent people, they don't learn by seeing. They think it won't happen to me, I'll be careful, and they engage in those activities not conducive, and then they struggle for a long time, and then they realize from their own experience they should not have been done. And the last, fourth class intelligent people are, even after experiencing misery, they never learn. So this is the condition of people in this age of Kali, where if you see, I mean, we have many experiences of engagement in sense gratification, and we know that all sense gratification leads to misery. Like especially now we are talking about Istri Sangha. So there was one person I speak to. I speak Bhagavad Gita. He's a Westerner. So he, at one point of time, he was very much interested in Krishna consciousness, and then he got into a relationship. This is America. So without any marriage relationship, they would live together in the same room. So I mean, naturally, we don't force them. We don't give them strong instructions because they won't be able to take it. So he would do that, and I said, well, just chant Hare Krishna and read Bhagavad Gita, and things. I mean, we have to be very patient with those people. So what happened over a period of 3-4 months, he had a breakup with them. Just 2 days back only, I was speaking with him, and he went into such a state of depression, and yeah, he's unable to sleep, lost the hunger, and yeah, lot of suffering, lot of anxiety. So nature of this world, we can go back in our life and we see wherever we try to enjoy, we get misery from there. And then because we may not be very intelligent people, we may think that, and then this person, after he suffered misery from this Istri Sangha, this relationship, now he's looking to enter into another relationship. Now he's thinking that I'm miserable because I don't have a Istri Sangha. So if I get another Istri Sangha, then I will be happy. Now this is foolishness, because he just had an experience. He is suffering because of Istri Sangha, and he is trying to overcome the suffering by getting the another cause of suffering. And then again, the history will repeat, and the history will repeat, and the history will repeat. I'm not saying about anything about grahasthashram. Grahasthashram is very divine, because the purpose of grahasthashram is husband and wife keep Krishna in the center. But I'm talking about uh, the sangha with a desire to enjoy, not a desire to serve Krishna, not keeping Krishna in the center, and that's a cause of suffering. So so this is kind of, like Prahlad Maharaj says, puna puna charvita charvanana, like chewing the chewed. So we have chewed it, and then we have experienced misery, and then we want to chew it again, and with the hope that this time misery won't come. It will only be happiness. And then again, it gives misery. And then we feel like, no, this time it will only be happiness. This time it won't be misery, and it gives misery. So intelligent people learn just by hearing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this instruction. I mean, this is especially for renounced order. For people who are in Grahastha ashram, the recommendation is no illicit sex. No illicit sex does not only mean physically, it also means um, in the mind, desire to impress somebody else other than one's husband. These are very, very instructive. In Vedic culture, when the husband goes out of the home, the wife would not wear any makeup, any nice clothings. She would live such a life that everybody will be like, kind of, by seeing her, they would be like disgusted with her. Or maybe very, let's not use the word disgusted, but she is very unattractive. But when the husband comes back, she tries to serve the husband through her makeup and sari and whatever the ladies would wear. So that's Vedic culture. And in Kali Yuga, it is like, because of anarthas, um, one tries to find something out of marriage also, if not really like in a big way, but one may try to impress some other men, impress some other woman, through various ways. They all come under and you will see, it will give us a lot of anxiety, it will give us a lot of misery. So um, one must learn to tolerate these urges. These urges are there, but I mean, it's understandable, because Srila Prabhupada says, because we have been in the association of um, um, like um, in the association of material world, since time immemorial, there have been many strong desires. These are all desires to enjoy, and they are very strong in us. So that's why Cheto Darpana Marjana, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, the chanting of the holy name of Krishna will purify the heart. So one must be patient, one must be tolerant. We will see in the next verse, Rupa Goswami says tolerance is very important. And Srila Prabhupada says, the greatness of a man can be estimated by one's ability to tolerate the provoking situations. So there will be many provoking situations, and these provoking situations are the urges of tongue, urges of genitals, urges of anger, urges of mind, urge to speak, and these are all from our past, and these urges may be very strong. So that's why the beginning of Krishna consciousness, this is like the Shraddha stage that we're talking about, like someone who wants to become serious in their Krishna consciousness. Rupa Goswami is telling one must learn to tolerate these urges, try one's best. Prabhupada says desire may be there, but be patient, identify them as impurities, be patient, take the medicine of chanting the holy name of Krishna. And gradually and surely, all these desires will go away. This is the instruction by Rupa Goswami. So, um, if you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. That's why many devotees say, we don't want to approach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because Lord Chaitanya is very strict. So let us approach Nityananda Prabhu because Nityananda Prabhu was even more merciful. So, um, um, so one must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. Do not eat luxurious dishes, bhala na khaibe, or bhala na paribe. Bhala na khaibe is do not eat palatable food, and bhala na paribe, do not dress in fine garments. Dress in fine garments. One can dress in fine garments for husband, um, um, but one should not dress in fine garments for other people. For other people. Um, so do not eat luxurious dresses or dress in fine garments, but always remain humble and serve. Their Lordship Shri Radha Krishna in your heart of the hearts. Hridayate Radha Krishna Sarvada Sevive. Raghunath Das Goswami says, why are you so much enchanted by these things? Why don't you try to relish the service of Shri Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan within your heart? Why don't you serve them? And actually, one cannot access spiritual pleasure unless one gives us material pleasure. If we are very much attached to material pleasure and if we are running after it, then we will never have determination for spiritual pleasure. That's why renunciation is very important if you want to make progress in Krishna consciousness. Renunciation, and that's what Lord Krishna says when Arjuna says that um, um, I can control the wind, but I cannot control the mind. You all have read those verses in our Bhagavad Gita discussion. Then he says it is impossible, and Krishna says he says it is very, very difficult. Krishna says yes, it is indeed very difficult because his mind is restless by nature. But then Lord Krishna says abhyasena tu kauntaya vairagyana cha griyate. But by abhyas and vairagya, you can overcome the demands of the mind. Vairagya is renunciation. Renunciation is the mind have all these urges, all these demands. Okay, I'm happy without it. And what will increase those urges is association with the object of the senses. We are trying to tolerate, but then if we associate with the same object of sense gratification which we are trying to tolerate from, it will simply, it's like putting the fuel into the fire. The fire will grow even more stronger. So this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instruction to Raghunath Das Goswami. So this was the demand of the demand of to speak. Better be grave and speak only when necessary. And if you practice this, then you will have more time to become Krishna conscious, and you can go more deeper within yourself. Then mind's demands, one must tolerate the demands of the mind. So Prabhupada says vacuum attracts anathas. Buddhism won't work. So um, um, mind is our biggest enemy. Lord Krishna says, 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita, mind is our worst enemy, mind is our best friend, based on what are the mind's desires. And we have sufficiently fed the mind with the enjoying spirit since time immemorial. And mind has so many impressions, previous impressions. And even if you're chanting, the mind will present the thoughts and desire for sense gratification. I want to see this, I want to touch this, I want to taste this, and fill in the blanks. And that's how the mind will present all those desires. But what we have to do is we have to tolerate. Now, two kind of people. One kind of people are very strong. So when the mind demands, they can tolerate. But another kind of people, they are weak. So weak-minded people. So weak-minded people, they, when the mind demands, they know it's wrong, but then because the mind voice is too strong, they give in to the mind's demand, and that degrades one in their Krishna consciousness. And then if that becomes a habit, then one becomes very weak in one's Krishna consciousness. One loses determination on oneself to do anything in life. So the mind is very tricky. Mind can take us, and the mind is the cause of next birth. Lord Krishna says, whatever we remember at the time of death in the mind, that will decide our next birth. Example, Maharaj Bharat remembered deer and he became a deer. So the thought in the mind will give us the next birth also. So it becomes important to control the mind. So those who cannot control the mind, whose mind is not very strong, they should make some arrangement so they don't have access to their weak points. Weak points. So we know where we become weak. Where we become weak. So then then we should not expose ourselves to the environment which will make us weak. Many examples. Some people are very weak when it comes to eating palatable food, like have many experiences because it's a journey and it's a long way. This is the first verse of Nectar of Instruction. So one must, like, I short example, I used to live in Detroit Temple, and before Radha Gopijana Vallabha came. So this maybe like 4 or 5 years back, I don't remember. So they would have very nice prasad, rasgullas and gulab jamuns and pakoras and kachoris and samosas, and there will be like cakes and juices. So anything that you desire would exist at all point of time. Anybody can come and take. And I used to live in the ashram. So when I would go, then I would feel like, oh, let me see how this tastes. Let me see how this tastes. Let me see how this tastes. And then I would end up in overeating. And then I would lament, oh no, I didn't do the right thing. Why? Next time I'll be more strong. And then again, when I would go, then my senses would cheat me and they would have me take something extra more than what I could eat, and especially palatable foods. So again, this became a distraction for me. Then I realized that the problem is I'm going there. That is a problem. If I don't go there, if I don't see, because eyes creates illusion. Trust me. Note this point very carefully. Eyes creates illusion. When you see, then the temptation will come. So I thought, well, let me not go there. There is something like out of sight, out of mind. You don't see, and um, it will be all right. You will be okay. But constant association, that's what Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayato vishyan pumsam sangasteshu pajayate. Sanja sanjayate kama kama krodha vijayate. Krodha bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti vibhrama smriti bhanusa buddhi nasha pranashyati. So Lord Krishna says that by sangha, by association, attachment develops. And when mind associates, so what we are doing, like for example prasadam, when I see gulab jamun, then I'm associating with it, and by seeing, attachment will develop. So and the best way to develop renunciation there is by not exposing myself to the environment where I see. Like for example, I will share, I'm just being very open today. So there was one devotee, no names, very close to me, and he was facing a lot of problem with a relationship. Basically, he was never into a relationship, but he had some infatuation with somebody. So um, every time I asked him that, Prabhu, how is your mind? He said, Prabhu, my mind is very disturbing, and I'm just not able to come out of it. So I told her that, and then he said, she's into another relationship also, and I know this relationship is not going to work out. Still, I have a desire to talk to her. I have a desire to text her, or I said, yeah, so delete her number. And then when I asked her to delete her number, uh, when he went to the number, his hands were shaking to delete the number. I said, bro, give me your phone. And then I took the phone and I deleted the number. And then his heart was beating that the number is deleted. So I asked him that how frequently do you talk? He said, we don't talk. I said, is there some association? He says, yeah, we text once in a week. once in 15 days we text, and that one text once in 15 days captures his consciousness for 15 days. And after 7 8 days, he wait for 7 8 days to go so that one text will come. So this is the power of attachment. And then I said first block and then delete. And this is my request and my instruction that you're not going to add this number again. So that's how strong is the power of contemplation. By contemplating, attachment develops. Lord Krishna is very clear. And Rupa Goswami is also telling one must learn to tolerate, because any sinful activity, if you give into it once, it's going to pull you back there again. You become weaker to do it again the second time, and you become weaker again, and then you become weaker again. So this is like a dangerous pool, and we are trying to become pure. We are trying to become Krishna conscious, and then these are the obstacles that one has to overcome. So how do we do when the mind has so many demands? Two things. One thing is, um, one should remain busy, because if your mind is empty, you will attract all kind of previous impressions. No free space in the mind. um, um, Most of the time, what I've seen, um, after, like, especially, please forgive me if I speak anything wrong today. I'm just being very natural today. Especially I've seen in grahasthashram, husband wife, they may have attraction for each other maybe for few months, and then they don't have attraction for each other. It goes away, like probably within a year it goes away, and then that attachment is transferred to something else, somewhere else. So grahasthashram is never from my experience and from Shastra, grahasthashram is never a impediment, but it is the desire to enjoy. It is that thing within us. So one any like so basically, out of sight, out of mind. If you have some relationship problem, like I'm sure none of the devotees have it, but if someone has it, so I will share it for my own purification. Out of sight, mind will put us into illusion. That's where these things like Facebook or anywhere where you see a picture of a person will put you into illusion. And again, if the mind is weak, mind will go again and again to look into the pictures, look into the videos, and then contemplation, and then contemplation, and then attachment. And then what is the cause of contemplation? Lord Krishna says, pranashyati, buddhi nasha pranashyati. So once lust develops by that contemplation, lust give rise to attachment. Sorry, attachment develops, attachment give rise to lust, lust unfulfilled give rise to anger, and um, anger give rise to greed. I wanted at any cost. I wanted at any cost. And then the intelligence is lost. The discrimination power is lost. Memory is lost. And then fall down. Pranashyati. Pranashyati. So, so this is it's called anatomy of fall down. So one has to be very, very careful, because we are, like according to scriptures, the biggest enemy in our Krishna consciousness is our own mind. And that's because we have contaminated the mind sufficiently in the past. I mean, I'm assuming every one of you is very, very pure. I'm sharing it just for the sake of my own purification. Mind is the biggest enemy. That's what we have to deal with. So then we need some practical tips how to disassociate with the mind. Know your strength and know your weaknesses. Know your weaknesses means see where you become weak. What increases your contemplation on sense objects, and then cut off there. Like one brahmachari, he like this is, I think many devotees know, some may not know. So he came to Radhesham Prabhu. He is a very senior brahmachari, Radhesham Prabhu, very pure. So one brahmachari who was kind of trying to advance but had many attachments. So he went to Radhesham Prabhu and he said, Prabhu, through this phone, sometimes I see things I should not see. And I am very much disgusted with myself. And then I lament, what do I do? Please help me. And he was crying because naturally, if somebody goes to senior brahmachari with this problem, he must have tried his best to overcome this bad habit, but somehow he could not. So he went for help. And this brahmachari said, give you your phone, let me see. He took the phone, put it in his pocket and said, go. He said, yeah, this phone is your enemy. It's not. Now, naturally, the enemy is the mind, but the mind is weak. So let's take some measure that the mind does not have access. So he took the phone and later on he gave him a simple phone which does not have any screen, like that touch screen or those kind of things. Especially with the progress of Kali Yoga, the sinful activity are a touch away, a screen touch away, sinful activities. And that's what makes progress in Krishna consciousness exceedingly difficult in Kali Yuga. Because previously, if you see 50 years back, there was no internet, there was no electricity. So people were way more spiritual, no night lives. So they would sleep, and they would sleep right after sunset. They would get up at 3 o'clock. They will do their sadhana. They were all very spiritual. But with Kali Yoga, television came, internet came, telephones came, WhatsApp came, Facebook came, and then so much social media that is just bombarding us with so much. I mean, it can be used in Krishna service, and all glories to this facility. We must use them in Krishna service. But make sure these are not degrading us. They are not the cause of our spiritual death. So that's why one has to be very careful. See, how quickly you make advancement in your Krishna consciousness depends upon how careful you are. That's why sincerity of the practitioner. But one may say that I want to be very sincere, but I'm unable to, because the strength or the force of material illusion is too intense for me. Then avoid. Basically, Rupa Goswami instruction is whatever is favorable accept, whatever is unfavorable reject. So whatever is unfavorable for you may be favorable for somebody else, or whatever is favorable for you may be favorable for somebody else. So you don't lead your Krishna consciousness based on how he's practicing, how she's practicing, how they are practicing. You see what it takes for you to advance, and then you take those measures. It doesn't matter what people say, what people think, because we are not living for people in this world anyways. We are living to make advancement. If we become conscious of what others will think, then whom we are thinking, they will be disgusted with us anyways, and Krishna will also be, because there was one devotee who would travel with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His name was Kala Krishna Das, and Kala Krishna Das was attracted by women, and he was personal associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and saved him from the allurement of women, grabbed him by the hair, and took him along with him. That was the mercy of the Lord, because a servant is under the care of the sannyasi. So sannyasi should make sure that the servant is safe. So Mahaprabhu did like that. But then Srila Prabhupada says that if one is not determined, even if one is with Lord Krishna, one may fall down. He was personally with Lord Chaitanya. So at any point of time, the mind may trick us. Don't think, I mean, this is something maybe more relevant at later stages in our life. Never think that now I have sufficiently controlled my mind for so many years. Now my mind is under my control. No. The moment you expose the mind and senses to the object of sense gratification, um, mind will cheat you. Mind will cheat you. So one must be very, very careful. Very, very careful. So how to deal with the situation? Vacuum attracts anartha. um, Keep yourself busy. This Western person who had a breakup, I told him, keep yourself busy, keep doing something, whether at job or be with friends, be with people. Otherwise, it will become very difficult. Buddhism won't work because Buddhists say that free your mind from everything, and that won't work because Prabhupada says vacuum attracts anarthas. So if you free your mind with everything, then mind will naturally attract the previous impression. So what we have to do is fill your mind with Krishna, fill your mind with Krishna's service, and that's how we can overcome. And then Prabhupada says, meditate on lotus feet of Lord Krishna. While chanting, you can meditate on lotus feet of Lord Krishna and engage yourself in seva. So that's how we overcome the mind's demand. Just be careful. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, beat the mind every day 100 times. He says in the morning, beat the mind with the shoes, and in the evening, beat the mind with the jhadu, broomstick. So the essence is, in the morning, chant the holy name, and in the evening, um, um, do some seva. So broomstick, so jharu lagana, so you do some seva. So one must be busy, and see, mind is our biggest obstacle in our progress of Krishna consciousness. So when we try to chant, who tells us not to chant? It's the mind. We try to discuss Bhagavad Gita, who says I'm not interested? It's the mind. So whatever spiritual activity you want to do, if the mind says no, so then mind is always saying yes to materialistic pleasure, but no to Krishna conscious advancement. So one must learn to be harsh with the mind. So Prabhupada says one must learn to neglect the mind. Mind is not our friend. Mind may present many, many things. We are not the mind anyways. Mind is just an element within our body who is presenting many thoughts. We are not bound to accept them. Rather, we should use our intellect, higher intelligence, to defeat the mind and then do what is the right thing to do. Okay, then the next is actions of anger. So, anger is another very big problem. Why anger arises? Anger arises because of um, unfulfilled lust in the heart. Lust is the cause of anger. Dhyato vishayan pumsam sangas te shubhajayate sanjayate kama krodha bijayate. So kama arises from sanjat, association with material object. Kama, lust arises, and kama krodha bijayate, from lust anger arises. Um, Lust basically means attachment. Attachment. Um, and Srila Prabhupada says, once one become angry, the whole body becomes polluted. And the desire to, like, anger is a very big topic, and um, we can do a different seminar just focusing on the anger aspect. Um, Basically, when things don't happen our way, someone is not listening, um, when there is a desire to control, um, um, yeah, things should happen my way, and um, attachments, and the reason for everything is actually kama, lusty desires. um, Lust can be subtle, can be gross. Gross lust is sex life, but subtle lust is name, desire for name, fame, recognition, prestige, and when any of these things are not met, anger will arise. Okay, now maybe we can take some discussion. Before that, I will try to read something from Srila Prabhupada, and let's see. Let's go to anger. Okay, similarly, anger can be controlled. We cannot control anger altogether, but if we simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord, all the devotees of the Lord, we control our anger in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry with the miscreant brothers Jagai and Madhai, who blasphemed and struck Nityananda Prabhu. So we know the story where Jagai and Madhai were very sinful. Nityananda Prabhu wanted to transform them. They hit Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu was bleeding. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and he said, Chakra, Chakra, Chakra. And he wanted to kill Jagai and Madhai. And we discussed this. Finally, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave his mercy to Jagai and Madhai. So we see that the Lord also becomes angry. So that is the right use of anger. And we saw that Hanuman became angry. That is the right use of anger. So pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he would become angry in order to train the disciples. And that is that anger is pure because that anger is not arising because of inner contamination. That anger is arising to serve Krishna. Hanuman was angry to serve Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was angry because somebody hurted Nityananda Prabhu. Nashingadev was angry at Hiranyakashipu because Hiranyakashipu tried to harm Prahlad Maharaj when Prahlad Maharaj was a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. So this is the right use of anger in the service of the Lord to protect the devotees of the Lord. In his Sikshashtaka, Lord Chaitanya wrote, Trinadapi Sunichina Tarodapi Sahishnuna. One should be humbler than a blade, than a grass, and more tolerant than a tree. So one should be humbler than a grass and tolerant than a tree. If you become more tolerant, naturally you will overcome anger. If you become more tolerant, even if we are not pure souls, if we work on our tolerance level, anger will go down. One may then ask why the Lord exhibited his anger. The point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to one's own self. But when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Krodha, anger cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. It was in anger that Hanuman set fire to Lanka, but he is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Lord Ramachandra. This means that he utilized his anger in the right way. Arjuna serves as another example. He was not willing to fight, but Krishna incited his anger. You must fight. To fight without anger is not possible. Anger is controlled, however, when utilized in the service of the Lord. So one may become angry for the service of the Lord, um, um, but in my own experience, in a purified state, we can become angry in the service of the Lord. But in a conditioned state, like some of us may be in, best is to avoid becoming angry. Um, Another thing I can say is anger is mode of ignorance, lust is mode of passion. So when there are three modes, mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So when we come to mode of goodness, the lust and anger will go away. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. There are a series of verses we discussed, starting with Shanvatam Swa Katha Krishna, Punya Shavanati Kirtana, Hide Antastoi Abhadrani, Vidunoti Suhurit Sata, which says that Rajas Tamas Tata Bhava, which basically says by hearing, one comes to the mode of goodness. And once, because lust and anger are characteristics of mode of passion and ignorance, if you come to the mode of goodness, this Prabhupada calls it base nature, lust and anger. It will not disturb you. If you come to mode of goodness, because they are lower modes, and more thickly you situate yourself in the mode of goodness, now tolerance will naturally develop, because tolerance is a quality of goodness. Patience, determination, these are all quality of goodness. As long as we are in the lower mode of passion ignorance, we will easily be pulled in that direction. So really what works is that we have to come to mode of goodness. And how to come to mode of goodness is ananya bhakti, or thick devotional service. Thick devotional service means long durations of devotional service. You hear a lot, you chant a lot, as much as you can. Shravanam and Kirtanam. You keep doing this, and over a period of time, without your knowledge, you will see all the lower natures will go away. They will go away. In the mode of goodness, the anger which the devotees exhibit is not in the mode of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance, when like the common anger, is because of attachment, lust, and many other factors. But the anger of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Hanuman, this is transcendent. So the best option is to increase our Krishna consciousness. Now, one may say that if this seems to be the answer for everything, is there something else one must do? But the fact is, nothing else will work. We have to raise our consciousness to at least the mode of goodness. And like there will be some effort to raise our consciousness, but it will save us a lot of trouble. Save us a lot of trouble. Okay, so let's see if there is some discussion that we can take at this point of time. We covered three things. We covered anger. We covered um, mind demands. And mind demands, we covered many things. And we covered eating, the urge to speak unnecessarily. So let's see if there are some discussions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat pranam, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, in one of your slide, it was mentioned there was an acronym BSST. I missed it somehow.
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur,
Oh, okay.
Spiritual Master Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And the Nectar of Instruction is same as Upadesha Amrita?
Yeah, same book, Mataji.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Any other discussion, question?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat pranam, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, could you please tell the broom concept, Prabhuji?
Broom, okay. So Saraswati Thakur said every day morning you beat your mind 100 times with the shoes, and every day evening you beat your mind 100 times with the broom. So what is the broom used for? To clean up, which signifies seva. So 100 times in the morning beating with the shoes is that every day you get up and you chant your books. Now, why it is called beating with the mind? Because the mind doesn't want to chant. Mind will say, no, I don't want to chant. You touch the beats, after one round is done, mind will say, that's sufficient. That's enough. So we are trying to overcome the urges of the mind. See, think about it. We sit for a movie, 3 hours, mind says, very good, one more. You watch 6 hours, mind is exhausted, you take 2 hours break, and then mind says one more. Likewise, serials, and especially people can gossip for hours, many hours, uh, but when it comes to Krishna conscious activity, 10 minutes mind says sufficient, that's enough. So the mind is in a very unruly position. Unruly means we have become lenient with the mind, and we let mind decide our life. We do what mind tells us to do, and this is not the right thing to do, because ideally we should instruct the mind what to do and mind should listen. But instead mind tells us what to do, what not to do, and we listen to the mind. So this is reverse cosmology. This is not recommended. So that's why Sasvai Thakur says we should beat the mind. Beat the mind. How do we beat the mind? You chant the holy name. The mind says, no, I don't want to chant. You chant more. The mind says no, and you chant more. And if you do it, the mind will start listening. That's why Krishna says, Abhyasena, you practice, you try, you try. Because if you don't try, mind is not going to become our friend in the even the next life or in any life. So we have to make some endeavor. It's like you don't study, you don't get marks. It's not like, just we don't study and at some point in time we'll qualify. No, we'll never qualify. We have to do our homework. And broom is you do seva. So basically, Sasvai Thakur is telling, in the morning, you just focus on chanting. And in the evening, you do some seva. Or rest of the day, you do some seva. Basically, keep yourself engaged. And that's how you can overcome the demand of the mind. Good?
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you for it.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Prabhuji, I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yes, ma'am.
Prabhuji, if maybe at home or in office, if something good happens or bad happens, generally we used to share with some other close friends, right? Is that bad, Prabhuji?
Something good happens, something bad happens.
Bad
Is it?
happens in the family or in the office also. Not
And then,
everyone, we have some close friends, right? We used to call and share with them.
Mm.
So,
okay. So if the answer is it good or bad? Okay, Mataji. Here is my honest, humble opinion. If something good happens, we may keep quiet, because if we share, we may get. See, I mean, it really depends upon the situation. But if something that where we were benefited, and if you share with somebody, um, people with whom you share, if they're like friends, they may become envious of you also, actually. Something good happens. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, one who is not elated when he achieves something wonderful, and one who is not disturbed when he loses something, he is called a man of steady mind. Why? Because everything is Krishna's arrangement. So I can really answer more, depends upon what is that good thing happens. But here is the baseline. As much as possible, don't glorify ourselves. Take it as Krishna's mercy, and wherever there is scope of glorification, avoid. And when something bad happens, we can take guidance if our mind is disturbed. Especially, this is satsang, especially from devotees of the Lord, whoever you are comfortable connected with. My mind is disturbed because of this situation, and how do I deal? How do I take it? Best is not to share the mind with people who are not Krishna conscious, because sharing the mind is like taking association, and that is not recommended, because their answers will not be on Krishna conscious platform, but will be on the platform of doership. We are the doer. So their answers will also be filled with illusion. like this happened because of this reason. You should have acted in this way, then this may not have happened, or something like that. Or maybe if it's health issue, then because of this reason. But a devotee will give you an understanding that, well, either it is Krishna's mercy, or take it as part of purification, take it as our own karma, take it. So the devotees will give a completely different perspective than a way a materialistic person will give. So, um, uh, did I address Mataji by any chance?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Anything else?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, like how can we practically apply, like think when we, for the speech of, so for the austerity of speech, I mean, it's one thing to know that we have to have that austerity of speech, but unconsciously we just speak unnecessary all the time. So how should we train ourselves?
Yeah, Prabhu, very good. It's a gradual process for you. Best is not to speak about others. Um, Things related to service can be spoken, like let's do this. Things related to job can be spoken. Um, if somebody is sharing their mind because somebody is sharing their mind because they're in anxiety, you can listen. You are not listening because you are enjoying gossip. In a way, you are listening to serve, and that is a perfect situation. Somebody says, I'm going through this difficulty, and this is the Vaishnava Sangha, and then you hear, and then you see from a Krishna conscious perspective how to reply, or how to handle this particular situation. So idea is to be Krishna conscious. Things like, so these are like normal sharing, especially in grihasthashrama between husband and wife. Perfectly all right. For the sake of service, for the job related, heart sharing, because heart sharing develops relationship, which is very important. Like husband can say to wife or vice versa, I did not feel good. They spoke to me like this. And that is very important, because heart sharing will develop relationship, confidence. But the person with whom we are sharing our heart, they like, since you are um, like quite sincere in your Krishna consciousness, if somebody shares the heart with you, then if you hear some kind of negativity towards some Vaishnava, then never support, and um, um, let the conversation come out in a positive way. So those kind of discussions are very important. They are all called Krishna conscious discussion because it all depends upon what is our intention. If Krishna is in our heart, and if our intention is to become Krishna conscious or to help the other person become more Krishna conscious, all the conversations are called Krishna conscious conversations, and that's very good. um, Conversation can be about prasadam. Prasadam is very nice. What do you like to eat? And those things are good. Things like uh, magazines, serials, movies, politics, worldly situation can be avoided. Can we can avoid speaking those things. And to develop relationship, apart from all conversations at home, hearing about Krishna together will really help develop Krishna consciousness. Chanting together will help develop relationship very much. Serving together is one of the best ways to develop relationship. So those things within homes are very good. Not sharing heart with anybody who is not a devotee is best, um, um, because the guidance will be imperfect. It will not be according to scriptures, and it will be binding, and it will create illusion. Is it okay? You think?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So then we can continue. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpa tarubhyasya kripa sindhume evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnavendra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If I spoke anything inappropriate, please forgive me as your humble servant. Dandavad Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. धन्यवाद.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad.
Dhanyavad. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.